Hey guys, David here with Northwest Outdoor Adventures, and today I'm going to be talking about two of my favorite shoes from this year, the Ultra Superior 3.5s and the Ultra Timps. So let's jump right into this comparison video. Alright, so I'll probably overlay the actual specs on the screen right now as I talk about them, but pretty much the Timp is a little bit more cushiony ride, it weighs a little bit more, it's got a higher stack height, whereas the Superior is a little bit lighter. It's got a rock guard or a stone guard, and it's got a little bit less cushioning, a little lower stack height. So those are kind of the big things that I take away from these two pairs of shoes. Price-wise, I think they're very similar. So yeah, let's jump right into my feelings on each of these and what I thought, and maybe give them a little bit of a grade. All right, so starting off with the Superior 3.5s. As you can see, I put a fair amount of miles on these. I would say, well, I know exactly actually because I track it on Strava. I think I hit the 200 mile mark on these shoes before I retired them. And you're probably saying 200 miles, huh? That's not really that many miles for a shoe that costs, well in excess of $100, well over it. And I would agree. And so that's kind of my biggest issue with these shoes actually. And something that Altra, I feel like with their trail line at least, has had a problem with for a number of their shoes, and that is durability, especially in the upper. Hopefully you can see this, but if not, I'll do a better view that you can see anyways right now. Yeah, I had a pretty big blowout here after about, this probably started happening within 150 miles. And so I run mostly in the Pacific Northwest, so there is a fair bit of technical trails. We've got a lot of mud and rocks and stuff depending on the weather. But I mean, realistically, man, 150 miles before they start tearing up, we're talking almost $1 per mile here for shoes, which is pretty crazy. The wear on the bottom of the soles really wasn't too bad. As far as like grip and stuff, like I said, running in the Pacific Northwest, there's a fair bit of varied terrain here, and we do get some sloppy stuff. And I feel like the Superiors probably had a little bit better grip than the Timps do, but it's very close. I mean, I'd say they're pretty comparable in that aspect. And then as far as fit and feel, I feel like the Superiors, it took me a while really to break them in, probably 20, 30 miles before I felt comfortable running in them for a decent amount of time. So I don't know, the feel of them just didn't feel quite as good. They didn't drain nearly as fast as the Timps either. So they kind of felt a little bit waterlogged a lot of the times. They didn't drain very well. And yeah, overall, man, they would be okay and I'd be pretty stoked with them. I actually like the rock guard that they have in there, that stone guard, which is really just a thin piece of plastic. You can kind of see here. It's all right. I mean, it adds a little tiny bit of weight, and I ran with them and without them, and it does make a little bit of a difference when you're running in that kind of technical, pointy, gravelly type rock, especially that's common up here. I did find it saving my feet a little bit, so on those longer, 10 plus mile runs where you're running, just kind of pounding your feet on like logging roads, these did make a bit of a difference, but to counter that with the Timps, I would say that just the overall cushioning of the Timps felt a little bit better. So with that, I'm going to transition over to the Timps and talk about those for a second. So overall, I would say that the Timps probably are my favorite shoe of the last year or so. You can see I also ran quite a bit in these. I would say these probably have about 300 miles in them. And it's actually the second pair that I've had in this last year. So in total, I've probably put about 500 miles between the two pairs. And I will explain that because, again, the durability here, you can see, same spot in the upper, we've got some separation there between these two different kinds of fabrics. And again, same thing. So my first pair of Timps that I had, this happened after about 150 to 200 miles, and I actually exchanged them at REI for this pair. And these ones did last a little bit longer, although I would say I was probably running on a little bit easier terrain during that time. So maybe that stretched out that duration a little bit, but overall, gotta say, pretty bummed about the durability on both the Timps and the Superiors here. Because again, you're talking almost $1 per mile for shoes, which, for somebody, Joe Blow me, who, I'm not sponsored by shoes or anything like that, that's pretty pricey. So it's hard to justify that kind of cost. But that being said, that's really probably the only bad thing I have to say about the Timps. Like I mentioned before, I think these drain really, really well. They probably drain faster than any other shoe I've had. So running out here where we do get a lot of rain, and you're running in puddles all the time, and there's a lot of creek crossings and stuff, I think these are awesome. Pair these with some kind of wool socks, and you're really good to go all day. So I really liked how these drain. And as far as the cushioning goes and the weight, they do feel a tiny bit heavy, but overall the cushioning is so good that I kind of don't care about that. So I actually just bought another pair of the Timps, and hopefully this one will last a little bit longer, but if not, I don't know, I'll probably have to move to something else. So to kind of wrap this up and in conclusion, I don't know how much information really I've given you guys aside from just complaining about durability issues, but if you're in the market and you're kind of torn between Altra's line of shoes, I tried the Lone Peak 3s as well. I haven't tried the 3.5s, mostly because they fit a little bit differently and I didn't like how that felt. So I would compare the fit of the Lone Peak 3s if you really like those, or even the 2s, or the earlier version of the Lone Peaks. I felt they were fit-wise somewhat similar to the Timps. I have pretty flat feet, and they're a little bit wider, and just the standard D width or whatever for the Timps just fits my foot perfectly. I do get a half size up in my trail shoes, so I actually run an 11 for these, and I normally like a 10.5 for my road shoes that I run in. And yeah, I think overall I would definitely recommend the Timps. I would say the Superior 3.5s is a no-go for me, mostly because of the durability issues, which are just a total bummer, and they don't drain very well. So I don't like having soggy wet feet all day, and yeah, unfortunately up here that's a huge issue. So for mainly that reason, the durability, I would say avoid the Superiors. I definitely had some more blistering issues than I've ever had in any other shoes than with the Superior 3.5s. But again, I think that was partially related to just moisture within the shoe, and I probably could have worn better socks at the time and things like that. So yeah, I'd say given the opportunity, I'd go with the Timps, and I would recommend those. If you're in the line for Ultras, if Ultras are what you're about, I'd go that route. So hopefully this was somewhat helpful. If not, sorry, tell me what I can do to improve it a little bit more. And maybe the next shoe comparison or review I do will be more to your liking. So thanks, and catch you guys next time.